Jake here for American Muscle, and today I'm taking a look at the JLT Performance Cold Air Intake and the Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash Tuner Bundle for 2018 to 2021 Mustang GTs. Bring some more firepower to your S550 GT with this bundle, featuring the popular JLT Intake and the Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash Tuner. This is an excellent and budget-friendly way to get some more power and response without blowing out the budget. Now, speaking of that power, we ran our 2019 GT on the dyno to see what kind of gains you can expect with this setup. In our stock dyno run, the 2019 GT made 400 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque running on 93 octane. Now, after installing the JLT intake and the Bama tune, we saw peak numbers of 427 horsepower and 385 pound-feet of torque, making for peak gains of 27 horsepower and 17 pound-feet of torque. However, our numbers under the curve were slightly better with gains of 32 horsepower and 16 pound-feet of torque, and you can feel that increase lower down too, so certainly a noticeable difference. Now, there's lots to discuss here, but let's start with that intake, and the first thing you're going to notice is this enormous filter. This is a big 5x7 pleated oiled filter, so you're going to get a lot more air flowing through than you would with your stock filter. And that oiled surface is going to be excellent at filtering out even small particles and dirt. Now, having an oiled filter also means that you don't need to worry about replacing this. You can just wash it out, re-oil it, and be back on your way. So if you're planning on keeping your car for a long time, or if you live in a place where that filter gets dirty really quickly, this is going to save you some money in the long run. Now, to keep that filter cool, JLT does provide you with a heat shield. Now, this is not a closed box system entirely, but it does have some heat sealing around the edges. So this is going to do a pretty good job of keeping that engine bay heat away from the filter itself, making for a much more of a true cold air intake than something that doesn't have a heat shield at all. So this is also designed to pull in that cold air through the fresh air vent in your grill. You've got the extension right here for it, and you do have some space in here around the filter itself once this is under the hood, so that filter is going to be bathed in cold air, so to speak. Now, all that cold air is going to get funneled through a tapered flange to this huge 120 millimeter MAF housing, and then on through the intake tube into your engine. However, this intake does require a tune, and luckily we've got you covered here, bundling our best-selling Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash Tuner with it. Now, this is a great all-in-one tuner that can hold up to 10 different custom tunes at a time, and it also allows data logging and monitoring, and not to mention, it functions as a diagnostic tool, so you can read and clear engine trouble codes with this right here. Don't need anything else. Now, this is going to come with 2 custom tunes to match the mods that you have on your car, including this intake. And since you're buying this as a kit, you get enrolled in the Bama Tunes for Life program, meaning that you're going to get free unlimited tune revisions for life. So as long as you've got this and you've got your car, you're going to be able to get some more tunes all down the road for free. So even if this is your first mod, and you're thinking of doing additional mods down the road, like say an exhaust, you'll be able to get those free updates and keep your Mustang making as much power as possible while still running smoothly. Now again, these are custom tunes, so you can have them tailored to your car and your modifications. One other thing I want to mention here is that with this intake, you do have the option to include the sound tube that comes stock on your car, but it's already set up for you to just delete that if you want. Now, the X4 SF4 also features a full color LED display, making it really easy to read, especially if you decide to mount this up in your car, because it can show some additional info while you're driving, like that data logging I was talking about earlier. This has also got built-in Wi-Fi, so you don't need to plug it into your computer to download any updates. Just set it up, and you'll be able to get the latest software updates automatically. One other thing that's worth noting is that this does retain your stock tune as well, so should you ever decide to return the car to stock, you can just plug the tuner in, flash it right back to that OEM spec. Now, when it comes to construction, this filter that we were talking about earlier is a cotton media blend with that oiled surface that we mentioned. Now, that intake and the heat shield we were talking about earlier are finished in a textured ABS plastic, giving them a nice finish, good heat resistance, and durability. Coming in at about $800, this kit is very much a value proposition as compared to some of the other ones out there on the market. But you don't have to fear, there's nothing that's really skimped on here. So if you want that extra power and response for a good price, plus the flexibility of all those tunes, this is definitely going to check all the boxes for you. Installation gets an easy 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and this should only take you about an hour to get done. Swapping out the air intake on these Coyote engines is a pretty simple job, which we'll show you shortly, and loading the tune is as easy as plugging that tuner module into the OBD2 port. But enough talking, let's go ahead and show you how to get this on your car. Tools used in this install include a ratchet with a short extension, an 8 and 10 millimeter socket, a Torx T20 bit, a clip removal tool, a Phillips head, and a flathead screwdriver. All right, everybody, now it is time to start installing that JLT Performance cold air intake and the Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash tuner on our 2019 GT. But before we get into the install, take a look at this clip. This is going to show you how to uninstall your stock intake.
Okay, so the first step in our install once the hood is popped is to grab a trim panel removal tool and remove 2 covers on each side of the engine cover to expose some nuts that we have to remove. Okay, so you will see 2 little cutouts on either side of this cover. Just take the end of your tool and pry up in one of the cutouts, and this should come out. Repeat that process on the other side. So there are 2 10mm nuts, 1 in each side of the cover. You're gonna want a 10mm socket if you can find one, and a nice long extension to make sure you can get on the nut. Go ahead and loosen it up and remove it. Repeat that on the other side. Okay, now that these nuts are removed, you can grab your cover around the edges and pull it off. There should be several clips that you just need to release in order to remove the cover. Okay, now we can disconnect the MAF harness. Pull back on the red tab. It might be hard to see, but it's on the bottom here. Press down. And release. Now you can release this vacuum line on your intake tube, press down and release it. Next up, we're gonna remove this crankcase vent line. There's a blue tab. Press back on the blue tab. And it should come free. Just press backwards on this blue tab here to release those. Okay, now you can grab a set of pliers and release the sound tube. Go ahead and squeeze the clamp. And you should be able to wiggle the tube off. Now if you can't get it off by hand, you can gently pry back on the tube with a flathead. Just be careful not to damage the rubber. Next up, grab your flathead screwdriver and loosen up the clamp holding on your tube to your throttle body. Go ahead and wiggle it to remove it. All right, grab your 10mm socket again and go ahead and remove the bolt holding on the airbox. All right, now we do have to remove this one pop clip that holds the MAF sensor connector line onto the airbox. So go ahead and grab a pop clip removal tool. Go ahead and pull that off. The back part of the sound tube is also connected to the airbox. Just grab and pull it up and out of the way. Now that everything is disconnected from the airbox, we can grab it and lift it out and off of the car.
All right, now that we have our stock intake taken off the car, there's a couple things we need to do before we go ahead and put the new one on, including transferring of 2 key parts. First of which being the mask airflow sensor right here. So I'm gonna take my Torx T20 driver right here. You can use a bit, whatever you got. Just undo these 2 screws right here. Pull this guy right out. Just take note of the orientation. We are going to put this back in basically the same way when we put it in the new intake, so we'll set that aside. And then once we've got that done, we got to remove a grommet from the air box itself. So I'm going to swap that out for us right now, and we'll do that. All right, next we got to remove this little metal sleeve here with the grommet. We're going to go ahead and transfer that over onto our new air box. So the easiest way I found to do this is just take a flathead screwdriver and just push that metal fitting out. You can just pull that out separately, set it aside, and then the grommet should just be able to push out with your finger. All right, once that's out, we can go ahead and set our intake box aside. And we're gonna come over here to the new one. Now this is gonna go in essentially the same place, so it's gonna go in this hole right here. So we'll take the grommet, feed that through. Go ahead and make sure it's seated back here too. So once it's through all the way, then we can take a little metal fitting here and we'll push that through the center. Now we're gonna go ahead and start assembling our intake tube with the filter. Next thing we're gonna do is put the inlet duct onto our new air box here. So this has got a couple of tabs on it, one on the bottom, two on the top. The two on the top here are gonna go around this part of the box. So the box is gonna sit in between these two tabs. So what I found is the easiest is to start with the bottom. So we're just gonna slide that in like that. Then you can just sort of push on this till those tabs go in. I just push it a little bit too far. Just have it set just like that. So you have this one tab showing on the outside. Now we're done with the box, we can go ahead and start assembling the intake tube. Now we're going to install our mass airflow sensor in the new intake tube. Now JLT does provide you with a new gasket and two new screws here. So I'm gonna use those. I'm gonna take my gasket and just slide that onto the mass airflow sensor itself. It will only go one way. So make sure you get that seated on here nice. To work it on a little bit. Okay, once you've got that seated, we're gonna go ahead and slide it right in. This opening is gonna face towards where the filter is. So it's gonna align right here with the JLT logo. Slide it on like that. And we'll take our two screws. I kind of push them through the gasket here. These are Phillips head screws, so just take a Phillips head screwdriver. Tighten them down. Make sure you got them nice and tight so it makes a good seal here. And then we can move on to the next step. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put our coupler on the intake tube. Now this is a reducer, as you can see, so the one side is larger than the other. This smaller side is gonna go on the throttle body on the engine side. This is gonna go on the intake tube here. So I've gone ahead and taken my clamps off and set them aside so they're not in my way. And then I get a little bit more leverage. You just have to work this on. This is a bit tight. You should be able to do it by hand. Once you've got it started, I'm just kind of even it out there. Once you've got it on there, we'll take our big clamp, slide that over top here, and then we'll tighten this part down. Now you can use either a flathead screwdriver like I am, or you can use an 8mm socket. Doesn't really matter, it's up to you. Again, I'm just using the flathead because I have it here handy. You shouldn't have to tighten this very far either. All right, once you've got that nice and tight, we can go ahead and put the filter on. All right, last thing we're gonna do on the table here is put our filter onto the intake tube. So again, same type of clamp as before. You've got this nice little lip on it, so we're just gonna slide these together like that. Get it seated nice. And you can take either your Phillips head, your flathead screwdriver, or your 8mm socket, and just tighten this clamp down. All right. Now we can go ahead and put the box in the car and get everything buttoned up. All right, now we're here under the hood of our Mustang. Now JLT does give you the option to include that sound tube from the stock intake should you want to reuse it. They give you the fittings and include the measurements should you want to cut and make the hole in the intake tube. However, we are going to eliminate it, and they make the provision for that as well with this little cap. So this is just going to fit back on the firewall where you pulled that intake tube out from. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in now since we're eliminating it. Just kind of slide it right on in there. And job done. All right, next we're going to go ahead and fit our new heat shielder intake box. So this is going to be a bit of a finagly operation here. We're going to slide this part in. This air duct is going to meet up with the air duct that is in the front of the car. And we're going to slide this in place just where our stock air box was. So you can kind of get that down in there. It takes a little trial and error to get this in correctly. The biggest hurdle is this part of the fender right here. So once you've got that kind of seated in there, you can actually pull this through a little bit if you need to. Get it underneath. Get this air duct to meet up with the stock one in the back of the grill like so. And then over here, we've got our grommet that is going to meet up with the stock mounting location. So take a minute, make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then we can go ahead and bolt this down. Using the stock bolt from our stock intake, we're going to feed this through that grommet that we put on here earlier and bolt this down into the stock mounting location. As always, I like to get these things started by hand. And this is just that 10mm socket from earlier too. Once I've got it started, I'll go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, make sure that's secure. Make sure our inlet is in place. And then we can move on and put the intake tube in. All right, now we can go ahead and put our intake tube on. I went ahead and took the clamp off of this coupler here just to make it a little bit easier to get it on. So just go ahead, gently work that on. It should just slide on pretty easily and seat down there. And just rotate this down. Make sure it's seated where it needs to be. We'll put the clamp on. Once I've got that started, I'll go ahead and take my 8mm wrench. My 8mm ratchet, excuse me. And tighten this down. All right, now we've got that nice and tight, we're just going to reconnect our PCV lines and our mass airflow sensor. Next, we're going to start doing up our PCV line, so I'm going to start with this one up front. Now this is a little bit different than your stock one, but you can just rotate this around. So I'm going to take the line, feed it back under here, and then just connect it right up, just like that. Now we'll do the next PCV line. Now this coupler you may have to turn a little bit, but it will turn, just like that. And slide it onto the intake until it clicks into place. Make sure it's good, and we're done with those. Now we're going to go ahead and connect our mass airflow sensor. So you're just going to put that back in, push the red tab, make sure it's in, and then we can put this push tab right there into the intake box. There's one last piece to assemble, and that's this little piece of foam here to help seal off the air box. So it's a little shorter on the one side than on the other. Let's kind of work that in there, get it nice and tight. Again, this is optional. You do not have to install it, but we're going to just because it was included in the kit. And with that, we're done installing the intake, and now it's time to move on to the tune. All right, now that we have our intake installed, we're gonna go ahead and load up the new tune using the Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash tuner. This is a pretty easy process to do. We just have to plug this into the OBD2 port underneath the dash, and we'll go ahead and select the tune, let it load up, and then we're gonna run this thing on the dyno and see what kind of power it's making. All right, using the supplied cable, we're gonna go ahead and plug this into the car's OBD2 port underneath of the dash here. This is just gonna plug in, make sure it's seated nice, and then the tuner should power on and you'll follow the prompts on there. All right, now we can go ahead and program the car. So we're gonna go to this first menu choice, which is program vehicle. Gonna have to go through the menu here. Now this is gonna prompt you to turn the key on, so you're just gonna hit the start button here, power the car on. I'm gonna turn on and then we'll hit continue. Okay. So right down here, you'll see our custom tune that we have set for this. We're gonna go ahead and select that one. Now this is gonna ask you a couple of questions. First one, did you change your tire size? No, we did not. We did not change our gear ratio, so we'll leave that there. If you did change your gear ratio for this, you can do that. We are not gonna adjust our front TPMS settings, and we're not gonna adjust the rear either. So now that we're ready and we've selected all of our options, we're gonna hit continue. This is gonna save our stock data. The car is gonna cycle through a bunch of times too, and then it will load the new tune. Now as this goes through its process, just be patient, follow the prompts. You don't have to touch or do anything while this uploads the ECU tune. Turn the key off. Again, turn the ignition on, just hitting the button. Now this is going ahead and clearing any diagnostic trouble codes that may have been caused by putting the tune on, so it'll have no check engine light. And then we're all done, so we can just hit done and go and enjoy our new tune. So that's gonna wrap it up here for our review, install, and dyno test of the JLT Performance Cold Air Intake and Bama X4 SF4 Power Flash Tuner Bundle. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.